Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, MichandaShines. Welcome to another edition of Try Beginner's Luck. This week we have the coach of all coaches, 2020 Coach of the Year, Brian Grasky, with us. I am so excited. I got an opportunity to hear him speak at the 2021 Endurance Exchange, and I'm telling you, this is how I was the whole time. For those of you who cannot see me and you're listening, my mouth is wide open, eyes are big, and I was just like, yes, everything, just being a sponge and absorbing everything he had to say. So listen, buckle up your seatbelts for those of you who are driving. And for those of you who are just cleaning up around the kitchen or on your bike trainer, let's get ready for the ride of our lives as we have the coach of all coaches, Mr. Brian Grasky, with us today. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you here. I tell you, during your talk during Endurance Exchange, my mouth literally was wide open. I was just like, wow, there's so much knowledge, and I'm grateful to be able to sit in on here. And I just kept remembering Melissa saying how she was just so grateful to be able to sit up under you and to learn, and how you teach the other coaches. I want to start off by talking about USA Triathlon Level 1, 2, and 3 coaching. You are USA Triathlon Certified Level 3 coaching. What exactly does that mean?
It's right now, it's the top level of coaching with USA Triathlon. They start out with level 1, and the entry into level 1 is quite easy. You have to show that you're intent on coaching and that you want to make this a bit of at least a hobby, if not a career. And then after a couple of years of experience, you have the option of going into level 2. Coaching at the level 1, the education piece is all centered around the mainstream coaching of all different distances. And then we can specialize after that into long course, short course, draft, legal, or youth. At level 2, we start getting into more the process of coaching. There's more education on how to speak, how to communicate, how to work directly with athletes, whether that's on the deck or at the track. And it goes into a deeper level, into more the science and physiology behind what we're doing as coaches. And then with level 3, you need another few years of experience. There's a couple, at the time that I went in, you had to have gone through a USA Triathlon program called the Elite Mentorship Program, where I spent a week at the Olympic Training Center mentoring underneath the coaches coaching Olympic athletes. And then you had to take an elite athlete to either a national championship or a top 5 in worlds or Olympic qualification. So at that point, it was focused on coaching elites. It's changed a little bit at this point, but it's still focused on the elite level of coaching, a high level knowledge or certification or degree in exercise science, exercise physiology, and that. So right now, there are 23 or 24 level 3 coaches in the United States. We're working on getting a few more, certifying a couple every year, but that's where it's at. And it's right now it's called the elite level of coaching.
Wow. Well, thank you for all that you do and for your passion in this sport, to see it grow, to see it flourish. And it starts with coaches, right? And by having good coaches, you can train up really good athletes. And let's kind of segue into that. Can you talk about the type of athletes that you train, and do you even train beginner triathletes?
Absolutely. I train all levels right now, and I have, having coached for about 20 years. The first athlete I coached was a high school kid. I met with he and his father at the local Starbucks, and actually in their living room. And then we moved. We graduated up to a Starbucks after that. But through that, I've grown as a coach, and the athletes have grown. I've kind of messed with a lot of different things. I've coached at the club level here in Tucson. I've done many camps. I've coached with other companies. Now I have my own. I've coached the University of Arizona Tricats for 7 seasons. So at the collegiate level, beginners, elites, pros, world champions, draft legal, non-drafting, on-road, off-road, long course, short course. My focus right now is really on, as a level 3, we are the trainers of the trainers. So if you think of level 1, that's the primary coach. Level 2 are the experts who are brought in to coach at world championships and that kind of thing. And then level 3s, they're the innovators and the educators. So as a level 3, my job mainly is coaching coaches, whether that's coaching mentorship, teaching the USA Triathlon courses, or that kind of thing. I do carry a few athletes right now coaching directly. Most of my athletes are also coaches, and they tend to be the high-level professionals who've been successful in business or industry, and they want to carry that same high level of success into their sport, but they don't necessarily have the time to devote that somebody that's not, it's CFO or CEO level, C-level executive, somebody who's not that level may have. So I'm dealing with people who don't like to fail, like to work very hard, but also need to push into the recovery side of things because they tend to go.
That's really good. I think you mentioned that during the endurance exchange that the coaches need a coach. And,
Yep.
that's how they get better. And so, what would you say will be the number one thing that you share with your coaches that are coaching others that you think that is paramount as they transfer the knowledge to their athlete?
Well, that's a tough one because there's a lot of stuff with that. But I think the first thing that comes to mind is the ability to teach or allow our athletes to accept something less than their goal. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have high goals. I'm not saying we shouldn't strive for those, but there will be times we come short, whether that's a near miss, whether that's a failure, whether it's just a stumble. We have to impress upon us as coaches and on our athletes that it's okay once in a while to miss. And you don't have to be satisfied with that, but we have to accept that it happens. And so when we have a near miss, or we miss a goal, or we stumble in something, one of the most important things we can do as coaches and as athletes is go back and debrief that. I'm also a military pilot, and with our flight, the most important piece of the flight is the debrief, right? The flight might be an hour long and might be 30 minutes of tactics inside that flight, but the debrief might be 6 or 7 hours long. And we need to debrief when we fall short on something. And that's how we learn from it. That's how we learn to either approach it differently, have a different level of knowledge or different level of skill in order to make that success next time. And as athletes and coaches, we won't always make every single goal. And one, we have to be okay with it, but we don't have to be satisfied by it. So we need to then figure out how to train better, train smarter, approach the race differently, have a different mental attitude, execute our nutrition or hydration or rest plan differently so that we can make the success happen on the next one.
That's good. That's good. I want to go back to you being a pilot, but I also want to even go back a little further to your start. Let's talk about, how did you get started in triathlon?
Yeah, it was kind of I like looking back at this. I was a runner in high school. I barely knew how to swim other than get across the pool so I could go dive off the diving board as a kid. In high school, a friend of mine was a cyclist. His brother was a triathlete. And so I borrowed my mom's bike and I would ride with him when he was on his training bike. And he had done, my buddy had done a couple of triathlons, and his brother was kind of big time into it. And I always envied that triathlon piece. But it wasn't until I went to college that I got into triathlon. I went to college on the cross country team, and I just needed something different. I ended up at the beginning of cross country, actually, I ended up leaving the cross country team or looking for something different. So one weekend I spent on a bike ride with the triathlon team, and I borrowed one of the people on the team. His roommate had a bike. I borrowed that bike. It was a 62 centimeter bike, and I'm 5'9", so it was a little bit big for me.
Yeah.
But ended up breaking the chain about 7 or 8 miles from our dorm. And our dorm, that 7 or 8 miles is 7 or 8 miles, but it's also 1,000 vertical feet climb up to our dorm. And so I had a teammate on my left and a teammate on my right push me the entire 7 miles and 1,000 feet back up to the dorm. And And not once did they complain, not once did they say anything negative. And we just chatted the whole time, and I got a free ride. So that interaction made me leave the cross country team to go to triathlon. One, to try the sport, and two, because just the people were super chill and super cool. And that was the group of people that I wanted to be associated with. And I found
Absolutely.
that over and over and over in the 30 years I've done triathlon now, it is the people that keep bringing me back.
I would have to agree with you. The people in triathlon are bar none to any other individual sport that I've
Mm-hmm.
participated in as well. You know, you have your runners, you have your individual cyclists and your swimmers, but when you combine the three of them, it's like it's a whole different craft of people, and they're helpful. And as I'm saying this and talking about this, I really think it's the endured suffering that we go through. We understand that we are out here for the long haul and we need
Yeah.
each other. Whereas, you know, other sports it's one and done. But here we have three different disciplines that we have to come together on and encouraging. And I think about by the time you get to the run and everyone is looking depleted depending on what level or what, you know, length of the triathlon you're doing, and you have keep going, you got this, and it's like, but you don't know me, and you
Yep.
keep running and you get that little pep in your step, and you're just like, this is what it's all about, and you walk away
Yeah.
feeling good. And then you happen to see that person in the aftermath, you know, while you're out there getting your, you know, post race food or beer or whatever they've provided, and you walk up to that person and say thank you, it's because of you that I was able to finish the race. And then you walk away with that sense of, wow, we are a team,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's individual, but we are collectively a team. So I love that approach. And I just want to, you know, encourage those of you who are listening. Triathletes are truly amazing individuals. And if you are beginning and you're tri curious and you want to, you know, explore this sport, trust me when I say it's the people that will keep you coming back again and again, especially when you get with the right group of people. Speaking of right group of people, you used to coach for clubs. How important is it for a beginner triathlete to gain the experience of coaching from the onset?
It's critical in longevity in the sport or in enjoyment as a beginner. And the reason I say that is triathlon is that sport that we didn't grow up doing triathlon as kids, right? We grew up maybe riding bikes in a neighborhood, or maybe swimming when it was hot in the summer. Maybe we ran a little bit as kids. And then as we got into junior high and high school, maybe we were on the cross country team, but maybe we played softball or baseball or dance or band. But there wasn't kids triathlon like is starting today. And so with that, we don't have a youth sport background to go up into this. You know, a few people here and there were into the Wonder Kids, triathlon youth, and all that kind of stuff. But again, that's the vast minority of us. And so, what that leads to is, as adults, we don't have a background to back up to. We don't have a knowledge base to back up to that we learned when we were 7, 8, or 10, or 15. And so we're all going, we as adults, whether we're 18 or 35, we're going into this with a very minimal level of knowledge, and knowledge brings confidence. And so that means we're typically going into the sport without a whole ton of confidence coming in. And maybe we have some, but maybe it's not great confidence. We've read a couple books, we've listened to some great podcasts like this, but we don't have the experience to back up to. And so the only way to really get that experience without doing a whole bunch of races is to learn from the people who have. And so a club atmosphere gives us the ability to talk to other people who have been where we are or are there now. We can talk to people, you know, we're getting ready for our first triathlon. Maybe there are people in the club who did their first triathlon last year or the year before. Maybe there's a coach there who has done a few triathlons or has coached others to a few triathlons. And maybe there's somebody who's been in the sport for 20 years who really has that level of knowledge to really dig into experience-wise. And so the club just brings in, it really enhances your experience through other people and gains you that confidence, because you've seen, one, there's other people that are in the same boat I am and don't have this experience. And two, there are other people who have the experience that I can glean from, and they're happy to share that experience with me. And that's the best part.
Absolutely. Um, Starting out, you know, people don't know that coaching is an option. where would you say would be the first place that you would suggest for them to look so that they can have the coach of their choice? And how would you tell them to select their coach?
That's a great question. The first place I would go is back to the club. Again, if there's a local club, join that club, jump in, and just immerse yourself in everything the club is doing. And it may not be coach led, but even if there's a workout or a skill session that's led by somebody with experience, that can be a very powerful thing. If you're not sure about coaches in your area, I would go to your local bike shop or running shop and ask the people there where they send their triathletes, or if there's a club or a group workout in town. A lot of running groups and cycling groups and swimming groups have a lot of triathletes in them. And it's a great place to gain a little bit of knowledge and get a little network going from there. And at least my experience, a lot of clubs do most of their communication now on social media, and that's a good place to start reaching out as well. Um, Otherwise, I would, and what I encourage my athletes, especially beginners, to do is go to a race and watch a local race. Watch the transition, watch the start, watch the finish lines, watch the smiles as people cross that finish line. And you get a sense of excitement. You get to share that with them, even as a spectator, but that then you have some people there. Maybe you recognize somebody you know, maybe you have a friend of a friend there, or maybe you just walk up to somebody and say, you know what, I'm really proud of what you just did. I would like to do that. Is there a network here in town that you can get me plugged into?
That's good. I think that is very helpful information, and it points them in the right direction. Would you say that USA Triathlon has a page that they can go and look to see coaches from around the world? Perhaps if they don't want to go from a local and they want to get maybe somebody who's a level two coach or a level one coach, or maybe just hike up there for a level three coach. Would you suggest them to go back to the USA Triathlon page to kind of search out the group of coaches that they have there?
I would, yeah. The Find a Coach page on USA Triathlon's website is a great resource. You can search and filter by geographic area, by experience level, by expertise level. And so every certified coach has an option to put themselves on this page, and you can put in there that I work with beginners and advanced and youth and juniors and who I don't work with and that. So that's a great place to go. And from there, you'll get some information. You can reach out to the coaches. Usually it provides an email address or a phone number, and you can start doing your research that way.
Awesome. What would you say would make you turn away an athlete, even if they're a beginner? What is it that will make you say, I'm sorry, but I don't think I can coach you?
Also a great question. And that's happened. I've had to do that a bit. Coaching is a relationship, just like any other relationship. And some relationships work and some don't. If there's not a click, if there's not a personal connection between you and the coach, you're not going to get everything that you need out of that relationship. And it's going to be less than ideal for one or most likely both of you. And so that would be an opportunity. If a coach or if an athlete is interviewing me as a coach, or we've started working together and we're just not clicking, or we're not communicating well and we're not able to get by that, that's going to be the first place that I say, you know what, we're not going to have a great relationship with this. We're not clicking that well, but let me help you. Let me find you somebody who I think could work well with you, or somebody who has that level of experience or knowledge or availability that you need. And so as a coach, we should help with a solution to that as well, right? But it really comes down to the relationship piece, and we've got to be true to that relationship piece, just like with any other relationship that we have.
That's good.
We need to have that full trust is why.
Trust is good, and communication. But for someone, say for instance, they're scared, they're nervous, how would you tell them it's best to develop that relationship with the coach? Because sometimes it could just be awkward personalities, right? And how
Absolutely.
would you suggest that they get past that awkwardness? Because you got to think, you know, triathletes are smart. They are
Mhm.
A-type personalities. They know what they want, but sometimes we can be a little awkward in ours, just a little bit awkward.
Oh yeah.
So, how would you suggest getting past that awkward phase in coaching to say, oh, this isn't a good fit after working past some of the maybe personality, uh, personality challenges?
Well, I think that's just it. I mean, we need to understand that we all have different backgrounds and different upbringings, and we come from different places and we value different things. And that's just part of what makes us who we are. It's never a fun thing to have that conversation that we're not clicking in a relationship, but and before we get to that point, we should try and work through everything that we can. And it really just comes down to being honest with each other and truthful. If we don't understand something, let's talk about that. If you're not understanding what I'm saying, if I'm speaking in too many, buzzwords or colloquialisms, or just not, maybe I'm speaking too fast, then we just need to have those conversations. If there are personality differences, maybe that's a cool thing to learn about each other, is what makes you who you are, what makes me who I am, what are our backgrounds. I try to get to know an athlete on a very personal level first, because it helps break down some of those trust barriers. And if we know who we are at a personal level, we're going to be more upfront and honest. And we need to be upfront and honest with that, because there are things that are somewhat uncomfortable to talk about that we need to talk about when we start talking coaching. And there are things that affect the physiology of our body that, maybe we're not super comfortable with talking about. Maybe, if I'm coaching a female, maybe she's not fully comfortable talking to me about her cycles, but that has a big play on how we train. Or maybe we're not so comfortable talking about, peeing on the bike, or, just weird little things like that, right? So we really just need to break down every barrier that we can, be upfront and honest, and be truthful with each other, and we're going to develop a good relationship and move forward.
Brian, you hit on a really good one, the whole peeing on the bike. That's a vulnerable moment. And,
Yeah,
you know, you know,
I've
I've
been
done
peed
that.
on by people who splashed off the bike and got on me. I wasn't real happy about that.
How about those people? Oh my gosh, I gotta be monitoring that now going forward. Like, how is my that is so horrible. We're talking about where your pee is going when you're peeing on the bike, but it's a real thing,
Right.
because
Yeah.
that's a wasted time frame. And you know what? Your bike can be cleaned. You can get on there and clean your bike shoes. But sometimes if you get off the bike, it means you may not get back on, depending on how you've, distributed that lactic acid. So speaking
Right.
of lactic acid and distribution, let's talk about how you coach your athletes. So beginners and those who are, just, you could be an advanced triathlete, listen to this, or a very experienced triathlete, listen to this, and you just want to know the goods about how to coach and where to get data from. Let's talk about how do you coach your athletes, and what platforms are best served so that athletes can see their growth, uh, their growth, and be able to improve throughout the sport. Because again, I go back to my experiences, and this is how this podcast was formed, is just not knowing that there were tools and resources out there that will help you perform better. So, how would you inform a beginner triathlete on what they can do to see metrics and to at a very basic level so that they can grow as an athlete?
Yeah. So there's a ton of pieces, parts, and things out there that we can use to help with the performance, with coaching, with communicating that, right? Everything from power meters to smart trainers to, Zwift and Peloton and heart rate monitors. There's a whole bunch of stuff out there. And so the first thing we have to do is really have to be sensitive to who we are as an athlete and who we are as a coach. If I'm not comfortable with a power meter, I shouldn't be asking you to get a power meter, because I'm not going to maximize the dollars you spend on that. So it's important for us to know where our knowledge lies, both as athlete and as coach. That being said, there's one end of the spectrum where you can spend a ton of money on a whole lot of electronic gizmos and gadgets and get everything that you need. You can have sensors and monitors that monitor your heart rate, your power output, your caloric intake, your hydration levels, your sleep patterns, your the heart rate variability, which gets a whole lot into the physiology on things. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can spend money and time on. Or you can do what we did back in the day, where we just trained and rested and ate right, and it works. So really what it comes down to, especially as a beginner athlete, don't get wrapped up in the gizmos and the gadgets and the numbers. Get wrapped up in enjoying the sport, having fun, being active, being consistent with your activity, and allowing your body to develop in the pace that it develops. aerobic activity or aerobic fitness takes a lot of time to develop. Once you start training, you're consistent with training, the stuff that you train on this week, it can take 3 to 4 months to really develop into fitness. And you have to be consistent over that time. So one workout followed by a whole bunch of rest, followed by one workout, followed by more rest really isn't going to get you anywhere other than sore. You have to be consistent. You have to be diligent with your training. And that's more important than knowing how many watts you're pushing and what your heart rate is. Now, once we have that consistency down in that drive in that direction, if the budget's there and if the desire is there and if the coach knows how to use it, now we can get into heart rate, power, speed, power on the run. We can get into those gadgets in order to help define or fine tune how much power, how much effort we're putting out and into what level. And then that can help us define how much rest we need or what kind of caloric or mental or physical recovery we need or when the next workout should be. So the data really should follow basic training principles rather than the other way around. And I fear a lot of people get too wrapped up. I own a triathlon shop, a couple of them, and people come into the shop and they want a power meter with their brand new first bike, and they want heart rate monitors, and they want this and that gizmo and that kind of stuff. And we start really having a conversation of, why do you want all that stuff? Well, my buddy has one. Or I read an article about some, and we just need to really get to the basics of, let's train first, and then let's use the gadgets and the data in order to help fine tune that training once we're consistent. But if we don't have that first piece down, if we don't have the consistency down, if we're not training, all the gadgets and gizmos are just going to be a bunch of wasted money. And that's the thing is, let's enjoy what we're doing first rather than spending a ton of money. Now, my degree is in engineering. I love numbers. I have all the gadgets and gizmos, and I love coaching with them. So I'm not discouraging their use, but they're not the end. They're not the primary piece. They're a secondary tool.
So ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. If you're beginning, just have fun, train.
Yes.
And just because you get sore doesn't mean you're fit. That was a word. Because, I'm not going to front. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, I'm so sore. I'm like so fit. No, you just shut that down. So thank you for shutting that down and letting me know that just because I'm sore doesn't mean that I'm fit. And for those of you listening, that's for you too. So with that said, I think that's funny because you come back from the gym and the next day you're sore and you're like, I worked out so hard, I'm this, and you're like, But let's see what that, how your fitness is looking, your form is looking over time. So I think that's just great. And in terms of the gadgets and gizmos, I can speak to that one and say, I don't have all the gadgets and gizmos, and I've been doing this sport for about 7 years. But now that I'm more invested into the sport, it's like, okay, now I want to get those things because I want to see the metrics change and I want to see improvements and I want to grow. So what I would suggest is get the basics and grow with the sport, because you can get all that stuff in the beginning and then you're selling it 6 months later on Facebook Marketplace because you're unhappy. And that's because you didn't know how to work everything. And there's a system. And I think just like with, as if we think about it from a baby's perspective, when we start off on milk, then we get the milk with some formula in it, and then we get milk formula, and our parents may sneak us some chicken, or they start giving us table food, and then we get more sophisticated, and our palate gets more sophisticated as we grow and mature into adults. And I think that's the same thing that can be looked at into this sport in terms of start off with the basics. Make sure you have a bike computer so your bike computer can measure your cadence, measure your speed. But power, you'll get into that later, because power isn't as important if you don't know how to distribute the power.
Yep, absolutely.
And I mean, look at me learning something, through this training I'm learning, it's all about power distribution, or, how to use your zones correctly. Because that, again, power, if you're getting a power meter and you're only in a zone 4, you're going to mess yourself up because that's not where you need to be depending on your race. So you have to know why. You have to know the why when getting the gadget so that you can use them and respect the gadget. That's a good one.
Absolutely.
Respect
Absolutely.
the gadget. Hashtag, we need to hashtag that, respect the gadget. So yes. So with that said, Brian, we have the gadgets, we have the tools, If a person is coming to you for training, what would be the first thing that you will tell them to do so that they can get set up and be set up for success?
Oh, that's a good question. Everybody's so different. Um, the first thing we need to do from a training standpoint is kind of, as I mentioned before, get the consistency down. We need to have a consistent schedule, a consistent training bill. It doesn't mean every day of the year, right? We need downtime, we need off time, we need rest and recovery time, which is harder where I'm at down in Arizona. People want to train all year round, where if you're up in Colorado, you may be skiing for the winter, and that's good rest. So we need to really take the first thing and look at the whole season and say, what are our goals this season? Where do you want to go? If the goal is a specific race or a specific distance, or to qualify for an event, or maybe the goal is just to do a bunch of races and have fun. The first thing we need to do is really just have a sit down and talk about what those goals are. Then we figure out what the primary goal is at the end, or somewhere down the season, and figure out where we are right now in terms of that goal. So if the goal is to race at a certain time or a certain fitness level, we need to set where we are now so that we can have a starting point and end point. And then the whole point of training is find that roadmap between those two fitness points. It may be a straight line, but more likely it's a little bit of this, and we'll turn over here, and now we're going to work on swimming, and we'll work on a bike over here. And there's only so many hours in the day or hours in the week. And with a lot of us, we hold jobs, we have kids, we have, soccer games to go to on the weekends, family vacations, so the training has to follow that roadmap loosely to where we can have the ability to take a weekend off because we're going to the mountains, or miss a morning workout because the kid got sick, or, those kind of, we have to have life work into this triathlon plan at the same time. If we're too rigid and we're too stuck in what we're doing, then a couple of things will happen. Either our family will resent us because we prize triathlon over everything else, or we will start to resent triathlon because we can't live our life the way we like to live our life, or the way we're used to. And so we need to make sure that in the whole game of getting from where we are to where we want to be in a fitness standpoint, we need to make sure that life fits into that as well. So the training plan has to take into consideration all those things and have some flexibility. And so that's a lot of things, but that's kind of the first process that I'll go through.
I like that, because you say on your website that you love helping busy people work sport into their lives.
Yep. Not the
And
other way around.
right. And I think that that's key, because you have so many people who automatically say, I can't do this because I'm so busy. When technically we do have 24 hours in a day. And if we maximize those 24 hours, we can fit in, even if it's 30 minutes of training. 30 minutes of training is better than no training at all. Right.
Absolutely.
So, what is your strategy to getting people to make this a priority?
I can't.
Mm.
My strategy is I don't make that decision. I'm the coach. I need the athlete to make this a priority. And that's the strategy, is you as the athlete, if I'm working with you, you as the athlete, you need to make this a priority. Now I can help you in the how to make this a priority. I can help work around lifestyle. I can help work around different things by having a simple plan that's flexible, that can vary. I can be available so that in the morning you wake up and you're not feeling great, you text me and say, hey, I'm not feeling great, what do I do? But making training a priority is not, that can't be the coach's job. That has to be the athlete's job. We have to commit to this. And so in doing so, once the athlete says, yep, this is a priority, I can make this a priority, I'm going to do this, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to rearrange, I'm going to be more efficient with this, I'm going to combine these two things into one or move them to a different day. Once we have that commitment down, now I can work and I can say, all right, here, I know you have 40 minutes today. Here's what we're going to do for that 40 minutes to maximize your time, effort, and energy into the best fitness that we can. Now, there may be conversations of your goals are here. Right now, we're working at a level to reach here. So is there something else we can do to gain a little bit more time, or to gain some more rest and recovery, or to get a little bit more sleep, or to eat a little better? And those are conversations that I'll initiate. But it really has to take a decision on the part of the athlete to commit to what we're doing. And again, there's an agreement. I will do what I can to make sure that the sport fits within your lifestyle, but there's a give and take. I need the athlete to be able to allow for some ability for the sport to come in to the lifestyle. And most athletes really want to do it. Once they set their goals, and again, I don't set the goals as the coach, that's the athlete. Here's what I want to do. That's once the athlete sets that, they own that. The reason I don't set that goal is I need athlete buy-in. So if they set that goal, they own it, and now they can commit.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, you mentioned if we're unbalanced, then families start to resent you, right? First of all, I just want to say shout out to your triathlon family. You have the quintessential family. You know, everyone in your family come is a part of this sport. Your newborn is, you know, equally came out of the womb saying, "Hey, I'm going to be a triathlete." Like you, literally, your wife, your beautiful wife Stephanie, is a triathlete, and she's a coach. You know, under, you know, your company Gretzky Endurance. Your children are a part of this lifestyle. Let's talk about that family dynamic of having a family who literally tries together.
Mhm. Um, yeah, so first, it's important for kids to try different things, right? And to get into everything. We've encouraged the kids to try everything. They've been into dance and soccer and baseball and whatever else have been out there, but they tend to gravitate to our triathlon, which is great. So that when Stephanie goes to practice, they're all going to one place rather than me trying to run everybody all over the place. Yep, my wife, we met in the sport of triathlon. She is now a level 2 coach and a youth and junior coach. So she runs our kids high performance team. I work a little bit with the team now and then. We've got a triathlon shop, like I mentioned, and all the kids are into this. So we've gone to nationals a few times with the older girls, and the kids now 15, 14, 11, and 6. Ryder was riding a bike with free wheels and handbrakes before he turned 3. I mean, it's something that has surrounded the kids, and they just think that's normal. Just like where I grew up, we were on a ranch, and that was normal to me. Now it's, these kids think it's normal to be in triathlon. And so we normalize it, and that's just lifestyle. It's just what we do. When they get home from school on Monday, it's swim team, on Monday evening, and on Wednesdays it's run day and that kind of thing. So it's fun for us being a part of that, and it's fun for them. It makes it expensive because we have 17 bikes in the garage, but that's kind of just how it works. The girls are into mountain bike. Actually, all of them now are into mountain biking as well. We had all three girls in the family were state champions in cyclocross 3 years in a row. I mean, it's just fun to be a part of different things and expose them to different things. And that includes being off-road, being on-road, running, swimming, cycling, the whole bit. So
Let's
it makes
talk
it
about
fun.
these 17 bikes. I mean, you have 17 bikes, so where are your cars? Or do you need
Yeah.
cars because you guys are so
Cars
fast
don't,
on your bike?
right. Yeah, cars don't belong in the garage. Garage is for bikes.
Hey, I would love to see a picture of this because I'm sure you have it formed in wall art because you're a very organized guy. I can just tell that you have everything organized. So I want you to send me a picture of how your bikes are organized, like whose corner is this, whose corner is that, to make it all fit. Because I think that that is just so cool. And for those of you who are listening, who are viewing this, how cool is it to normalize the sport for your children, and you're raising up a generation of people who will be active? And I think that's the point too, as with triathlons, you literally can start so early and continue on until you're 100. Like there's nothing that says that you can't. There's age groups literally for those who are 85 and over. So you can do this. This is a sport that you can do and engage the entire family. And say for instance you don't swim or you don't bike, that's what relays are for. You can do a relay and still train in that discipline and have coaching so that you can be as proficient as possible in that specific discipline. So there's room for you in this sport. Again, if you can't swim, it's okay. We can teach you how to swim. We can teach you how to bike. We can definitely teach you how to run more efficiently or walk very efficiently because people do walk. Speaking of, how would you encourage an athlete who, say, for instance, their knees are shot. They used to play football in high school and college, but they swim because now they feel that it's great therapy for them, and they're getting into bike riding because biking is the cool thing to do now. But they say, I can't do a triathlon because my legs are shot. How would you coach a beginner coming to you with those issues?
Why couldn't that person do a triathlon? That's the first thing, is the person says, I can't do this. We have to get around that first. There is no I can't. Of course you can. There are people in every single triathlon that we do that walk the run, or that do the race on the bike that they pull down off their garage ceiling, not a fancy tri bike, or are deathly afraid of the water. It's normal. The great thing about triathlon is not everybody is number one, and not everybody is super fast. And in the same race, you'll have people that, as you mentioned, can't run, and then in that same race, there's somebody who's a professional getting paid to do this. And that's kind of the cool thing about the sport, is there's all ability levels, and we have to get out of our own head first. I've worked with a fellow came to me, he was about 50 years old, 55 maybe. And he says, I just about drowned as a kid. I have not been in a pool in 40 years. I want to do a triathlon. And the first 3 lessons with this guy at the pool was just getting him to let go of the ladder when he goes into the pool. He ended up doing a triathlon. Now, he held onto the wall it was a pool of swim. He held onto the wall the whole way, but he did all 800 yards of that sprint triathlon swim holding onto the wall. Now, the next year we did the same race, and he did it without touching a wall. And that was a huge personal victory for him. And he went on, he was a business owner, and he said that gave him a ton of confidence to expand his business, a whole lot of other stuff, right? Family and stuff. But sometimes we have to get out of our own way and saying, I can't. I've coached people who do triathlons that can't run. One fellow, for example, here in town, hasn't run in years, but he speed walks. And he's learned the techniques of speed walking to where he actually walks faster than a lot of people run in the triathlon. So he's still getting age group podiums, even though he doesn't run. And another dear friend of mine I've known for decades in the sport, she's a kindergarten teacher up in Phoenix. She's the sweetest soul you'll ever meet. And she rides a big old upright bike, and she swims pretty slowly, and she walks on the run. And she says, her goal in doing a triathlon is so that no one else in that race has to be last. And I think that's the sweetest thought at all. And she has done probably 400 triathlons.
I need to meet her. Can you put
She's
me
awesome.
in contact with her?
I will.
Because that literally just warmed my heart, so that no one else has to be last. She's like the sacrificial lamb that even somebody who is just starting out, she's like, we'll wait for them in order for them to pass her so that she can finish last. Wow. I love that.
Those are the people that we find in the sport.
Oh, that is so amazing. I know in a Marine Corps marathon, they have a gift for the person that finishes last. And I was able to experience that. And of course, I was shadowing one of the announcers that year, and was like, wow, they actually give someone a gift for coming in last. How cool is that? So I need to meet that young lady so I can get her something for, just her sacrifice of coming in last and just doing it for the fun of it. Wow, that's good. Well, we have this part of our conversation where we have some rapid fire questions. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I just want you to shoot what comes off the top of your head. This is going to be about just random things, because I know you still train, so you probably will be able to answer some of these questions, and I just hope you have fun. So this is our rapid fire question. Are you ready, Brian?
Ready. Let's hear it.
Are you ready, Brian?
Ready. Yes.
Woo! Let's do it. Okay. What's your favorite artist, or who's your favorite artist?
Oh, my dad.
Oh, your dad's a singer, or?
No, artist in art. Draws pen and ink. So I went straight to the art side since my family is all artists. Both my sisters, my brother, my dad are all artists. I have not an artistic bone in my body. But I played music growing up, so I probably should have gone to the music side.
So funny. that helps me to be more specific. See, you got to be
There we go.
specific. That is good. I'm like, who's your favorite artist? And I'm like, let's see. That's great. That is.
Okay, musical artists. I would go Jen and Dean out of the 60s. I love 60s beach music.
I love it. I love it. That was good. That's one of those like moments. Oh, wow. Okay. At the end of the race, do you prefer beer, wine, water, or soda?
Beer for short course, water for long course.
Okay.
Because I'll be on my back wanting to vomit after a long course.
Fair. Totally fair. What's your favorite place to bike?
Mount Lemmon here in Tucson.
Awesome. What's your favorite thing about triathlon overall?
Two things. One, the people, and two, the feeling of accomplishment after either workout or race.
Favorite post-workout food?
Oh boy. Donuts. Sorry.
Oh, that's good. That's good. What are two things that you always carry?
Two things I always carry. ID, road ID, so that if I crash, somebody knows where I'm at, and $20 in case I need to get an Uber home, or a cab home. Uber now I can just do it on my phone, but I don't carry my phone.
Now why don't you carry your phone when you're training?
I train to escape everything going on. I have a military job, 5 businesses, 4 kids. Training is my ability to escape and to have me time. And so unless I'm in a new place or there's something specific going on, I don't carry my phone.
Wow, that's good. I'm gonna need to pick up that at some point in my life. Are you a transition minimalist, a Goldilocks where you have everything just right, or a kitchen sink space hoarder where you just bring everything with you and you figure out things at the transition?
I'm a minimalist who puts everything in the exact same place every single time. So, but I'm a minimalist.
I love it. Speaking of, thank you so much for partaking in our little rapid fire fun question. You mentioned you have 5 businesses. You are still working with the military, and you have a family, and you are a coach. How do you balance it all?
A good support team in each of those areas, and actually the biggest way I can do that is through the recovery and the mental piece that comes with training with triathlon. I'm not training 20 hours a week like I used to, but I still can get a workout in here and there. But it's support team. It's the people on base. I command a unit, but my command team is phenomenal, and I can leave a lot of the work with them. Businesses, I've got great managers that manage what they manage. With family, Stephanie's awesome. The kids are great. So that when I'm at work, I can be at work. When I'm at home, I can be at home. They're not all muddling up each other. And then when I get out to work out, I can, today I ran at lunch. I just told my command team I'm taking off an hour and a half, and that was it. So it's surrounding yourself with good people, giving them opportunity and resources to do what they need to do, and then trusting that they'll make right decisions.
And speaking of your good people that you have, and speaking of the good people that you have working with you, let's talk about the GEC method. Not only are your coaching staff, coached with USA Triathlon specifications, but they have to go through the Gretzky endurance certification. What does that entail?
Again, with anything triathlon, it really depends on the athlete. In this case, it depends on the associate coach, what their education level is, what their USA Triathlon certification level is, what their experience in the sport is. And so what I strive to do with that is, as you said, everybody's a USA Triathlon certified coach, and they maintain that throughout. And then based on what their own racing background is, we have a lot of conversation and some educational piece, a little syllabus, if you will, on learning how to train effectively in short course and long course, using technology, power meters, heart rate, and those kinds of things. So we go through It's a minimally structured program where I do have a syllabus. Some things we just talk about, some things we go through pretty in depth. I have them read a few different books and texts on things. And we hold a lot of conversations, sometimes while we're running or sometimes over a beer, just on different training topics, so that when I hand over an athlete to one of my associate coaches, I know that that athlete's going to get good personal attention, knowledge that's proven, not get a whole bunch of personal things or this worked for me, therefore it should work for you, but no kidding, based in science, grounded in science, kind of personal attention.
That's good. Um, I'm curious because you still work out, you're still actively training. And I know a lot of times beginners can feel defeated because they're not motivated. So, speaking to that beginner or just the normal athlete who's just stopping by this podcast, tell us, Brian, how do you stay motivated and push through to get the workouts done from a perspective of an athlete? And then I want you to talk about how do you motivate your athletes from a coach?
Yeah, that's a good question. How I do as an athlete is I know that I'm better when I'm working out. What I mean is I can tell that with life going on, I get more stressed and I tend to react more negatively or more harshly if I'm not working out. When I can get in a workout, even if it's just a 30-minute run or a 20-minute run, if I can get that in, if I can do something every day, if I can get it, I'm much better father and I'm much better decision maker and husband if I'm, can go get a couple hour mountain bike ride on Saturday morning or, that kind of thing. So that's my biggest motivation. And, it used to be I wanted to race and I wanted to qualify and I wanted to win, or, whatever it was racing wise. I had my racing goals. At this point, being completely honest, I don't have a lot of racing goals, but I do have events that I like to do. And I still hold myself in a personal pride situation. When I go out to race, I want to do well. But my goal is I need to be better for the people around me. As kind of we mentioned, I try and surround myself with good people and I want to be good for them as well. So that's my primary motivation. And then when motivating athletes, kind of what I mentioned earlier is the athlete sets the goals. And once the athlete sets the goals, they have that ownership. And so when it comes to a motivation piece, I'll talk about how training and the active training and how that releases stress and how they can be better person at business or better husband or better father or better wife or better mother when they're training. But it also comes to their goals. They have ownership in that goal. They've set that goal. And so the conversation circles back to that. Do you want to make this goal? Do you want to, maybe we missed it at a race, but maybe we can make that goal the next time or maybe next spring. And so I can't push motivation. I can be motivational, but I can't push motivation. The athlete has to own that, has to have that buy-in. And so owning that goal, seeing that race result. And then one of the techniques I use to do that is show them in training how they are making progress. That's gadgets and gizmos are great for that. We can see power increases. We can see records that were set. We can see, time trials or field tests. And sometimes it's just the fact that they made it through a workout. It can be huge. So I take pretty detailed notes on different things, and I give that encouragement when they get a record or when they see improvement or when they make it through what I know to be a tough workout. And that's really motivating to see, yeah, I did it. And I got through that. I have one athlete that constantly gives me grief on my swim workouts, and I give her tough workouts. And she gives me a ton of grief, and I always come back and I play pretty harsh with her, and she'll say I was screaming profanities at your name about 3/4 of the way through the workout, but I always come back and say, but you finished it, right? And that's motivating to her. And everybody's motivated a different way, but yeah.
Oh, I have a feeling you were in my head this morning as I was doing my swim workout because I probably screamed profanities and I felt like I cried today in the water and was like, oh, these tears, how do you train with tears in the water? Like, I felt like it was just a bucket there. No, I love, love, love that.
But you felt good after that workout, right?
I mean, you know. Yes, I did. And hence it's, which is so funny because that's why my hair is looking like it's looking today, because I was like, I have to make a decision. I either am going to work out and try to do my hair and do all these things. And, being a woman of, a Black woman, hair is one of those things that, we pride ourselves on looking good. And I had to say,
Yeah.
listen, I can't sit up here and blow dry it every day. Today is just going to be a put it in some braids and figure it out, because I also, before this podcast, had finished a track workout. So I was
Ah,
really cursing and
good for you.
was just angry and mad. And then I'm like, but I feel really good now. So yes, in the
Yeah.
moment and in the heat of things, it doesn't feel good. And when you finish, there is a sign of relief and a sign of like, man, I got this. I did this. I want to ask you another question, and I think it's just really good. Can you tell me your funnest or best triathlon story?
I've had so many, it's tough. Um, Funnest and best. The races I look back on as the most fun were my military championship races. Um, in 2005, six kind of era, we would go out. And it's a long tradition; it's still going on. But we would go out to um, uh, Thousand Oaks, California, out to Point Mugu, and it's flat as a pancake. It's on the coast. The water is just up from Zuma Beach, and it's super cold right there. And so it's horrible swim, but the transition is right on the beach. I mean, you're literally 10 yards from at water exit to transition. Fast course, the wind's blowing. Phenomenal course, horribly cold water, and I'm not a good swimmer. But what made it fun, again, going back to the people, I on the Air Force team, and we would race against Navy and against Army and against Marine Corps and against some Canadians and maybe some other people here and there. And it was just a fun event. We would get together as teams, we'd heckle the others, and we'd all go out and have a nice dinner together. And then, come race morning, we're all at each other's throats again. And it's all friendly competition, and the military can get pretty brutal with friendly competition. And on race day, it was just some of the hardest racing I've ever done. There were names like, Tim O'Donnell was a champion at one time, being a Navy officer. And so it was that level of that caliber of athlete at the top end, and then a whole bunch of age groupers, but we were all racing together. There were no age groups. There was no pro versus amateur. It was just, you were a military person on the Air Force team or the Navy team, and we were racing. And it was started off being non-drafting. Now it's draft legal. And so I was able to get on the first years of that race being draft legal.
Wow.
So it was an interesting experiment by USA Triathlon to certify a draft legal race for amateurs. And it was really kind of the leading edge of this draft legal push for amateurs that we have now. And so it was Olympic distance, amazingly fast, and it brought out the best in all of us in a competition sense. And then again, we're at each other's throats all day long, but then that evening we all go to, there was a tradition, we went right after the race to In-N-Out Burger and then ice cream, and then had a little bit of downtime, and then went out to dinner at the same Mexican restaurant. And we're all giving each other hugs and high fives and a bunch of crap all at the same time. And those are my favorite races.
Yeah, with your buddies, and thank you for your service, and to be out there with others who serve this country, and you guys get to try. I bet that is an amazing, amazing experience and time. And you guys are always probably sharing stories, and your stories can kind of interweave and intermingle with this sport. And I think that is just so great. And I'm glad that's one of your fondest memories, as being with those who you've served amongst and served with for this country. So thank you so much for your service.
Absolutely.
So we talked about peeing on the bike, and you told me you
Ah,
went out for a run today. And I'm just going to ask, because I'm just going to put a moment of vulnerability out there.
yeah.
Judge me if you want, people. I don't care. But my dear friend who also helps me with this podcast, we were talking about how we had come in from workouts and just literally had to, like, wash off really quickly. And it's kind of funny because we're like, look, we didn't shower. We just had to figure it out and do what we have to do. So for that athlete who is trying to figure out navigating work and like you said, you went for an hour and a half run today. What is the secret sauce to making sure you shower or do what you need to do so that you come back and are not offensive to your coworkers?
Yeah, if you have a facility, you have a shower at work, that's a wonderful thing, right? But a lot of us don't have that. So my trick, and it may not be the best way to do it, but what I've found to be somewhat successful, at least nobody actively tells me I stink. Trunk of my car or the back of the pickup bed, I have a cooler of cold water and a hand towel, a couple of hand towels, and I get done with the workout. I walk around a little bit to stop sweating because it was 95 here today, and then I just take a bit of a towel shower, wipe down, whether it's parking lot or in the office or at the trailhead or whatever. But a bucket of cold water, a cooler of cold water, a hand towel, baby wipes I've done. And then make sure you put some deodorant on afterwards, but it can be good enough, right? And that's kind of what we're looking for.
That's it. We just need good enough so that we're not smelly and offensive to those who may be coming around us.
Yeah, but a cooler cold water and a hand towel works great.
This has been such an amazing interview. And I want to just say thank you again for giving of your time, because you not only train coaches, but you've trained professional triathletes. And so I value your time, and I am so grateful that you said yes to come onto this podcast, because who am I? I'm just Michanda, this young girl from Augusta, Georgia, who currently lives in Washington, D.C., who picked up trying and has had such a love for triathlons and had this really cool idea to do this podcast. Said yes.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try Beginner's Luck, you always win.
Thank you. All right, guys, that's it for now. Talk to you soon.